Michael, we were talking last segment before the break about the attack in San Bernardino. We were talking about the president's response to it, the subsequent response by Donald Trump, and you made a great point about keeping this attack in perspective. And we talked about how putting the motivation aside, and we have to assume the motivation. We're never going to get into the minds of people who are dead. There doesn't seem to be a tremendous amount of evidence left over, but I think we can safely assume, to a large extent, that this was driven by some disturbed, perverse vision of apocalyptic, radical, extreme notion of Islam. But nevertheless, at the end of the day, 14 people are dead. They're dead in the exact same means, with the exact same amount of planning, forethought, training as we saw in a place like Sandy Hook. We have, in 2010, you're aware of that report that came out that showed 2,700 kids, teens and children killed in gun violence in this country. That's what that attack amounts to. There's no existential threat. There's no city in danger. It is what is now the new normal in this country, where we have, a mass killing. We had 3 or 4 over the past, a couple of weeks, maybe more, 10 over the past couple of weeks, depending on your definition, but 3 or 4 that, got national news attention, and that's the way it goes. But the Republican response to Donald Trump was stunning.
Yeah, the Republican response to Donald Trump was, if only it were stunning, frankly.
Right.
I mean, I think throughout this whole process, you've seen a completely pathetic response by the Republican establishment to Donald Trump for 2 reasons, and 2 reasons that we hit on often. First of all, because they're not all that far from him. They've been stoking these same forces of bigotry, division, irrationality, and fear for decades, arguably. And then secondly, they're coming out with attacks that are embedded with complete, performative contradictions. Let's take an insane, ridiculous example to sort of make this point. If Hillary Clinton came out and, Bernie Sanders was crushing her, and she went on some desperate strategy and said, he's a Stalinist or a Maoist or some nonsense. She started running like right-wing attack ads on him. And then somebody said, well, if he's really this bad, are you still going to support him in a general election? And she hemmed and hawed or said, well, yeah, anybody's better than a Republican. She would be, attacked mercilessly for that. What you've seen Republicans put out ads comparing.
Get specific.
Yeah.
I mean, you've talked about this. John Kasich put out an ad. Characterize that ad and then characterize his response.
Yeah, John Kasich put out an ad comparing Donald Trump to a Nazi, let alone a proto-fascist. Then later on in a TV interview, I believe it was with Martha Raddatz, said, I'm not going to answer the question about whether I'll support him as the eventual nominee because it's not going to happen. If somebody is the equivalent of Adolf Hitler, does that really require some type of ridiculous bob and weave like that? Jeb Bush was on TV. Someone said, hey, your advisors compared Donald Trump to a fascist. What do you think? He kind of evaded the question, but then said, hey, look, anybody's better than Hillary, apparently including a fascist.
Right. I mean, this is, and we have been saying this for months. Harry Reid tweeted it out this week. I can't remember exactly what the tweet was, but it was something to the effect of, this
Harry Reid said Donald Trump is standing on a platform of hate that the Republican Party built for him.
That's right. Exactly right. We've all heard the phrase standing on the shoulders of our ancestors. Well, Donald Trump's there's not even that much effort involved here. I mean, the Republican Party has brought out the ladder. It has built every step. And at the end of the day, they just haven't taken the next step. I mean, when you think about Jeb Bush, right, the supposed moderate's moderate, who came out 2 weeks ago and said, we need to put a religious test on the refugees who come into this country. You think how repugnant that is. And then you think even just this past week, when you have someone like Marco Rubio coming out and saying, we're involved in a clash of civilizations. Now, we keep hearing from Republicans all the time, words have meaning, et cetera, et cetera. Let's break that down. Let's break that down,
right.
what that means.
Right.
A clash of civilizations. No one who speaks the English language, no one who has access to a dictionary, no one who can Google, thinks that the word civilization applies to a terror group like Daesh or ISIL or however you want to refer to them. They're not a civilization. When we talk civilizations, we are talking about millions or billions of people. And so when he says it's a class of civilizations, what civilizations are he talking about? He's talking about the West. That would be us. And he's talking about the East. That would be the Muslim population. So if you have, and this is like a similar construct you have with John, you expressed, Michael, with John Kasich. If John Kasich is saying that Donald Trump is a Nazi, and then seconds later won't say, but, if you want, I'll support him if he runs on our party's ticket and he's the nominee, he's the eventual nominee, I'll line up behind him. He's got a credibility problem. Well, if Marco Rubio says we're in a clash of the civilizations, how can he then turn around and say, but this whole thing that Donald Trump would stop immigration from this civilization that we're involved in this epic existential fight for? Well, no, I'm sorry. That makes perfect sense. Donald Trump is answering the question that Republicans are raising. And they are saying, how much is 2 plus 2? And Donald Trump's just coming back and saying 4. And they're all walking around like, how dare you say 4?